Change begins from within. As easy as it is to look outside of ourselves and want the world to change, the truth is, it never will if we remain the same. This podcast was created for changemakers like you who want more love and connection in your community. Today, you are going to hear stories that will inspire you and also challenge you to be the change. We are going to go deep, my friend. So take a deep breath and settle in. My name is Emilia Tamburini. Welcome to the Circle of Change. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the penultimate episode of the winter season of Circle of Change. I am delighted to bring to you Michelle Moore, a powerful woman who I've had the honor of being coached and mentored by over the last 6 months. We get into so many juicy topics that as a change maker, I know you're going to find practical and life-changing. Before I introduce you to Michelle, I want to let you know that our 12-week program, Reclaim Your Life Force, is launching on April 13th, 2023. For those of you who are signed up for our email updates, you'll receive more news over the weeks to come. If you're not on that list, please join us so that you don't miss out on this really powerful way to be in community together and meet other change makers just like you. We're taking the Circle of Change online so you can connect with each other and get into so much more of the work that we speak of here in this circle. I promise you it will feel just like it feels here, loving, compassionate, and sometimes challenging, but in a way that will set you free. I would love for you to join us. So please head to humconsulting.ca/podcast and sign up to receive our newsletter or our podcast updates. Michelle Moore is a coach, author, speaker, and transformational poet whose expressions pierce the soul, and you will feel that today. This woman is a compassionate and ferociously loving advocate. Her transparency and vulnerability allows her clients to experience more joy, feel more in control of their lives, and move through the world as their authentic selves. And I can certainly attest to that. I think Michelle illustrates for us in her relatable stories and her ways of being what we are seeking as change makers, to know ourselves with radical honesty and acceptance. She is so honest that some of her words might activate something in you. And I encourage you to take that activation as an invitation to get curious and explore if there's any truth in there for you that might just set you free. If you want to work with Michelle, we have all of her information in the show notes. I'm going to come in at the end to pull out a few nuggets for you to work with, but here's a preview of what we get into. Michelle shares her pilgrimage from something's wrong with me to her authentic self and gives us the most helpful definition of codependency I've ever heard. We talk about the cost of caretaking ourselves over others, and I think a lot of us probably could relate to being in that place at some point in our life, and the difference between needs and wants in a relationship. She gives this beautiful picture of what love, true love, looks and feels like, and the ways to reclaim ourselves in small increments. She leaves us with a profoundly freeing reason to commit to self-development work. I felt seen and heard in this conversation, and I sense that you might too. Enjoy this dialogue with a sister who has your back in the most loving and compassionate of ways. Michelle Moore, welcome to the Circle of Change.
Thank you.
My body is lit up right now, literally, being able to sit with you in this way. It's a dream come true, and I'm so grateful for your presence here in this space. I like to let the listener know the connection between the folks sitting here. So I first was introduced to you alongside Sean Smith in the various coaching and entrepreneurial trainings that I've had the joy of being able to sit with you both in. And we've also had a few one-on-one connections. What has struck me about you, Michelle, and why I really desired you to be here with us in Circle is, well, many things, a number of things. One is your raw honesty. You have a deep knowing of yourself. Alongside that, a very strong willingness and wanting to be a student of yourself and allow us to learn alongside you. And this like out of body, superhuman attunement to hear what is needed to be said in the moment and also to see people. I don't think there's a conversation I have been in with you that I have not felt seen, whether that is a large group Zoom call or a one-on-one. And I think that is such a beautiful gift for me, but also for our world in this moment. And I think that's why I'm really excited to have you here in this space with the leaders and change makers who sit in Circle with us, is that I do think you showcase by how you be what is required of us today. Yeah. So just thank you for your gift of being always, but today as well.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's wild. I like to hear that. And it wasn't that long ago that I couldn't even imagine, while simultaneously really, really craving, that anybody would thank me for the being, because it was everything, my entire life was built around the doing. And so because of that, that was everything that was given back to me. Yeah. So, my heart is very full. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So we're going to start as we do here and settle in. Then we have another treat today where we've had a lot of poets recently on our show, and I love this. And you are also a transformational poet. So I'm really delighted that you've offered to read one of your poems with us today. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll settle us in and then I'll pass it over to you, and feel free to participate in this journey. For the listener, wherever you are in the world, I invite you to close your eyes if that is available to you, and just begin to feel the support underneath you, whether that is your feet on the ground or your tush in the chair, or as you're walking, your feet on the pavement or the earth underneath you. And feel that support that is always around you, that is representative of something so much larger, guiding us at all times. And in this moment, I invite you to also become present to your breath, this beautiful, beautiful gift that we have that really grounds us here in the present moment, this sacred space. And today I'm going to invite you to tap into the present moment in 3 different ways. So with each breath, I'm going to invite you to tap into, first and foremost, your physical body. So as you take a big belly breath in and exhale, what is present for you right now in your physical body? And then on this next inhale and exhale, I invite you to get present with your emotional body. What emotions are sitting here with you in Circle today? And on this next breath, I invite you to get present with your mental body. What are the thoughts that are stirring, that have come here to sit with you today? And on this next breath, big belly breath in and exhale, and let go of anything that you're ready to let go of for this moment. And anything that is not wanting to leave, invite them here in this space to sit alongside you for this conversation. not changing them, not making them wrong, just accepting you as you are here in this space. And Michelle, when you are ready, feel free to read your poem.
It's called Precipice. Standing on the precipice, gazing out and down upon the unfamiliar landscape, I can make out only subtle shapes and shades, unable to see the ground, unsure where or how I'll land, uncertain of the consequences of my jump or the dangers in my fall. If I get quiet, I can hear the whispers of the unknown inviting me to leap, a gentle request to surrender who I am, standing on the precipice for who I might become.
Beautiful. Thank you. What meaning does that have for you, that poem have for you in this moment?
It's really the theme of my life in this season. I sense that it's that way for many others, that there's this knowing that we're being called into something that is new, into something that is unfamiliar. Simultaneously, there's this like opening, like this excitement, this exhilaration, right? If I think about, and I've hiked and stood on the precipice, right? Like the edge and felt like that energy, but also it's so incredibly daunting, especially when we don't know, right? When we are at this place where, at least for me, I know that what is or what has been, like it's not it. And it might be like that it's completely unfulfilling, or it's not like it has more of like a negative tone, or it just might be that there's a call, like there's a call for something more. But that jump is also really scary because it's the asking of us to let go of everything that we are and everything that we've built our life around, everything that I've attached to, and all the meanings that I've made that mean for me and my life, about being willing to just surrender all of that. And so it's a continual invitation for me in my life.
Yeah. And I can see that knowing what I know of you. It's a beautiful model for us. And I'm grateful that you brought that piece to start this dialogue with. And it does make me curious about you and who you are. So, with this first question, Michelle, the question is, who are you? It's a question we ask all of our guests to begin. And I love this question because it's so open and it can go wherever you are in this moment. And if you did bring a talking piece with you, this will be the time to introduce it. And if not, no worries.
I do. When you had mentioned that, this is the very first thing that came to mind for me. And it's actually, I don't remember the name of the crystal, but my friend Jamie gifted it to me. And what I remember, which I've learned is really all that matters, right? Is like the what I make it mean, right? What it holds for me is that it helps with like honest, authentic expression, right? It helps with speaking the truth. And so I love the color. It makes me smile and it feels comforting. And I like the meaning of it. And so I thought it would be a beautiful thing to bring into this space as an invitation for authentic expression.
Beautiful.
Who am I? I'm home. I'm like unearthing, expanding. I'm safe. And I also used to hate that question. really good. I don't know. What are you supposed to say?
That's an interesting observation. I am guessing that you're not alone in that, having not liked it in the past, that question, because I mean, me too. I think there was a long period of time where I could not answer that question, or it felt very scary to me to even think about it.
Yeah, I relate to that. For me, and I would be curious, honestly, if there are other listeners out there. I imagine that there are who relate to this, but I didn't like being asked questions that I didn't have a clear answer to. So like I didn't like not like being in a space of like exploration, right? Being in that surrender, right? Not being on the precipice and also not being on the ground. I didn't enjoy that. And now these days, there's more of a willingness to just be like in process, like in remembering, in a continual relationship of like, oh, and who I am now is different than who I was 30 minutes ago, is different than who I was yesterday, and probably who I'll be tomorrow. Yeah. It's like who I am is fluid.
I love that. And that really is inviting for me to know more about you. So thanks for sharing who you are in this moment. We're already getting the sense that you have been on a journey in your life. I'm curious to hear more about that, Michelle, because you really show up in such powerful ways now. And I know that that only comes from a lot of deep work and life experiences. And so this is an opportunity to share a little bit of your journey with us, with the listener, and whatever part for you feels relevant in this moment.
Yeah, I'm like, how much time do we have? And I wouldn't have said this honestly until recently, but I think that it's like I've been on the journey since like in this lifetime, right? Like the whole thing has just been the journey. And so for me, it's been a continual like learning where home is and a continual returning there. And it's been exciting and exhilarating, and it's also been really lonely and vast and empty. I had thought of the word earlier today, pilgrimage. I liked the word, and then I was like, well, what does that even mean exactly? At least according to Google. Like it felt right for me, like this journey into this foreign, unknown place where I'm in search of this expanded meaning about myself. Like I have this sense in my body that like the uncovering of my authentic self is why, at least in part, why I am here right now. So I got into personal development where I started being conscious of these things back in 2006, seven, maybe it was through my direct sales business. Up until then, I didn't even realize that honestly, you had the ability to be able to think different thoughts, right? Or switch like your programming and the way that you operate in the world. I had no idea. I just thought this is how I am and that's how other people are. And so I became really probably obsessed is a good word with that world. I just became very, very curious about who I was and about how I operated and why I did the things that I did and why I was drawn to the things that I was drawn to. And honestly, early on, Emilia, it did not come from a place of love and curiosity. It came from a belief that there was something that was wrong with me and that I never really related to the word broken, but just that there was something that was wrong with me and that was the reason that I felt pain, or that was the reason that I was struggling, is that there was just something that if I could do it better, right? If I could fix it, then I would be able to experience all of these things that I saw around me, people being happy and abundant and really enjoying their life. And I just thought, okay, there has to be a default in me. And so the drive to get into the work kind of came from less of a healthy place, I would say. But it really put me in the seat of just being like, okay, like what's up? with this woman, with this human, and how does she tick? And I started doing one-on-one work with a coach in 2014, and I've been in, for the most part, consistently in some sort of like coaching, more therapeutic coaching, relationship, trauma, healing work since then. And that's been brutal and also beautiful in terms of what it's done in my life and where it's brought me to this place that I'm in now. There's so many things about my experience, about my days, the ability even to sit still, to breathe, to not become completely swept up, right, in a particular circumstance, to be more unattached, to have boundaries. All of these are things that I've learned in my own journey, which has been amazing. You said at the beginning, when you were taking us through the settling in, that, if something didn't want to leave, right, to just welcome it in. And that's probably been the biggest and most influential part of my journey, has just been the welcoming in of all of the parts of me that I believed for so long needed to be fixed or gotten rid of.
Yeah, that's profound. Thank you for sharing all of that. I can certainly relate to a lot of what you shared, especially that piece around something is wrong with me, and always coming at personal development change from that space, or showing up in my relationships from that space. Well, either me needing to change or the other person needing to change, but not ever really being able to settle into what is, and having calm in that space. And I know for me, finding that calm has allowed me to show up differently as a change maker in the work that I do, but also in my relationships. And I imagine that that is true for you as well.
Totally. The acceptance of what is, what you said. I spent a long time fighting reality in my own life, which created a tremendous amount of pain, because I never, not one time did I win ever. And so the welcoming in versus believing that anything is wrong, that this shouldn't be happening, they shouldn't be doing that, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And it's not easy. Like, I don't want to sit here and say like, oh, I just embrace all of the things. I spent time trying to get my dogs to be different than they were, so that they were potentially quiet for this recording. And it's the recognition of like, oh, I'm trying to control something that's actually not my responsibility to control. And so it's less for me about, I need to get to this place where I'm good now, where I just am operating at optimal capacity, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Ta-da, I've landed. And more like, I'm on this journey, and oh, I went over here. Okay, I can come back. That's been a huge gift for me in my journey, is the recognition that the goal of perfectionism, of fixed, right, in my life was just a misguided goal.
I would love to dive deeper into that, and maybe it'll come out later, because at the beginning of what you were just sharing, you talked about needing things to change or changing other people. And I sense that does tap into this conversation of codependency, which we talked about a little bit in terms of maybe that's one area out of so many directions that we could go today together. Codependency is fascinating to me, so I would love to ask you a question about it, in that I feel I have a rudimentary understanding of it, and know that I've had those patterns in my own life and continue to work with that dynamic in my body. And so I would love to understand it from your perspective, in terms of the work that you've done, the exploration, and even what you see or have learned through your coaching clients and all the experience that you bring there. So in your mind, what is codependency, and how are you seeing it show up?
it wasn't that long ago that I would have completely denied. Have you ever had anything like that in your life where you're like, everybody else probably can see it and you're like, what? I'm wearing a sweater. I had no idea that I'm wearing this sweater. And I remember the first time that I read about it and I felt so seen, but in like the worst way. Like, do you know what I mean? Like all of this stuff that I had spent my entire life unconsciously trying to hide was just exposed. And so I remember I was on an airplane and I just like shut the book and I was like, no, I cannot continue with this. Yeah, really uncomfortable. How I would define it for myself is that it's like an orienting of all of the aspects of my life around another person while abandoning myself.
Can you say that again?
Yeah. So for me, codependency is an orienting like of all of the aspects of my life around another person or persons, but around another person while abandoning myself.
I love that. I've never heard it defined in such a way, and I want to know more.
Yeah.
Tell us more. Yeah.
I think it's tricky because it's really easy to hide behind love and service and care for other people. It's not always easily recognized. And it's certainly easy to deny because of that, right? Because it's no, I love this person, or this person needs me, or, I really care about this person, or I have all of these responsibilities, right? And as somebody who, I shared at the beginning, right? That I equated my work was my worth, right? I believed that I had to earn a seat in the circle, right? I had to earn an invitation. I thought I had to earn everything. And so the way that I earned it was by what I did. What I didn't realize is how much of my own self I was just sacrificing, just dismissing big things and also little things like, oh, I'll go to the bathroom in 5 minutes after I finish this email. It's okay if I don't go on a walk right now. I need to do this. If I do this, then I'll actually feel better, right? If I complete all of these things, whether it's for a job or for a partner, for, a friend, like if I do all of these things, then I'll be able to, like, it's like I was trying to get my needs met through service to other people. And in the process, just ignoring all of my own needs. Interestingly enough, I felt more of the anger and the resentment than I was aware necessarily of the patterns. Because, after a while of self abandonment, I would see other people doing things and I would think and sometimes say things like, oh, right, must be nice with that energy, right?
Yeah.
Must be nice for you to be able to just, do what you want, or it must be nice just to be able to sleep in, or like, oh, how good for you that you can, spend this time creating or playing or doing all these things. And inside, just feeling this like low level, like rage, this like fury that I wasn't able to have any of those things. I would adjust my schedule. I would not really have boundaries with certain people or certain relationships. And no one was asking this of me. I was just doing it. I was making all of the changes or making all of the sacrifices because I just really believed that if I did that enough, then I would, feel loved, feel that acceptance. And it didn't work ever. Good as I was at it. I think it manifests in people differently, but it can really become like this obsessive like drive to control the people or the circumstances around us so that we can feel safe, right? Because if I'm in that kind of relationship with you, then I need you to be okay in order for me to be okay. So now, instead of just attuning to my own self, caring for my own needs, I've now made it my mission, right? Like I have to make sure that you're okay, right? So then anything I need to control with your schedule, with whatever you're doing, with where you're going, with what you're saying yes to, what you're saying, like I needed to be so involved in that because I needed to make sure that you were good. Because if you weren't good, then I wasn't good there.
It sounds exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. It was killing me. Uh, honestly. Yeah. It is incredibly exhausting. And in my experience, even once you become aware of it, it's really hard to stop. For me, that part was almost like the worst because like I knew I'm doing this thing that is not good for me, but yet I couldn't, like I just couldn't, I couldn't get it under control, right? Like I couldn't stop it. And that part like of the journey was really frustrating, super emotional for me, just because there was this like even frustration with myself in the process, right? Of why am I not able to fix this?
Mm. Right. Yeah, coming back to that. The examples you shared were really profound because I think I've thought of codependence in like maybe bigger scale relationship patterns like addiction and but just those minor not minor, I mean it's like these microaggressions almost of not allowing ourselves just to take a bathroom break or not going for a walk because we need to finish these things off. I mean, I so relate to all of what you just of that. And, you know, it's one of those moments where you think, oh yeah, I've got it. Like I've really worked on codependence. Like I think I'm good. You're like, oh no, it's there. It's still there. So thank you for that.
Mhm. So my wife works in a restaurant and she's a general manager. She works hours that are very different than mine. I recognized that I was adjusting my sleep and my eating. And not that there's not compromise in relationships, it's not what I'm talking about. But I recognized I was like, I'm not happy. I'm physically not well. Like my body isn't feeling good. And I know what I need. And I was like, oh, dang, that's my codependency. Like, and so just what you said, right, was just the recognition of like, oh, just this little thing of like, oh, if she doesn't get home till 11, then I'm going to stay up until 11. And if she's hungry when she gets home, then I'm going to eat then. And if that means that I don't get as much sleep as I want because my day starts at a different time than her, right? It's just like I'm orienting, right, myself around her. She didn't ask. She's never asked. And that's the thing too that I think we have to be mindful of is that it's easy to be like, no, 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 I'm a good wife or I'm a good employee or I'm a good girlfriend or a good boyfriend or a good partner by doing these things. This is good. This is what a good person does. And the reality is, at least for me, no, it's not. So it's those small moments of like, oh, actually, let me tune in with myself. And if I am energized and I want to stay up and be awake when she gets home, great. And if I'm not, then I'm going to go to bed because that's what I want. And that's what my body needs. And that's what feels good to me.
I mean, to me, that just feels so massive to make that shift in your body and be okay with it. And I can imagine it transforms the relationship that you're in some way. And so, can you give us a sense of that about what does a relationship that is not codependent look and feel like? Like, what are we seeking? Like our authentic self. What is our authentic self seeking in partnership?
You know, what's present to me is for anybody who's seen the movie Jerry Maguire. that famous line at the end of the movie of you complete me, which I believed for a long time that I needed you. And so for me, it looks like I complete me. It looks like managing my emotional needs. That's my responsibility. I take ownership of that. And so that I can come into a space with you and show up full. And sometimes what I do want, and there's a difference, right, between what I believe that I need and what I want. So I might want my wife's attention. I might want to be complimented, right? I might want to receive some sort of external validation. But if she's not able or capable of giving that to me, the responsibility to get it, I take that. So that might mean that I go to somebody else, or might mean that I look at my own self. So I'm not showing up in relationship expecting that other person to make me whole, to fulfill any of my own emotional needs. I'm the one that's taking the responsibility for that. And I believe that it actually allows us, and I do think that what we want is what you gave me at the very beginning of this conversation, and what I feel in your presence. Why I just have felt like, oh, like I like that. I like that person, and I want to be in their space. When I very first crossed paths with you, is because I get to feel seen. It's like I get this reflection of myself in that other person. And what I mean by that is that I believe that my authentic self is really craving that space where I can be seen as who I am. And then that actually allows me to see myself more clearly, versus if I'm showing up believing that I need to manipulate things and I need to control you in order to be able to get what I want, then I'm not showing up as myself. And then you're reacting to this version of me that I've brought to the conversation. And so I'm not able to see you or actually see myself. And then from that place, I really believe that we want, or at least deeply crave, to be held, like energetically held in a container that just feels safe. I wouldn't have put this together until like recently, but that's love. Like that's what that is. And so when I am able to show up without those attachments and without that need to control or dominate or manipulate, then I'm able to see you more clearly. I'm able to see myself reflected. And then I'm able to be in this container that's safe. And you feel that, and I feel it. And so then we're in the space where we're just seen, deeply seen and loved for who we are. That's what I believe, that the relationship, what's possible in a relationship. There's so much more spaciousness. There's so much more free time. I have so much more space and time now that I'm not so busy and exhausted trying to manage and control all of these things that just were never mine to manage or control.
I love how you describe that, and the safety piece. There's just something so warm and comforting about that. And I really see like the energetic shift of showing up in that way, of not needing so much from the other person. And then they therefore can also kind of take down some protective mechanisms of their own and really just join in with your energy where you're at. That's the vision I got when you were describing that relationship dynamic. It's really beautiful. You've spent time steeping in this for yourself. And I know you've supported clients with this dynamic as well. What do you think is required to make this shift within our bodies to get to this beautiful, delicious place that you've just described?
Like radical honesty and a willingness to really meet ourselves, patience, and a desire to understand. It's a process of being willing to like turn back and look at who we are. Well, I'll say it's a willingness to walk that alone. Like that's not going to be for everybody. There are some people who are very like hyper independent, right? I don't need anyone, right? That's not what I'm talking about. It's more of like a self trust and a self reliance. In 2021, my nervous system like shut down. I was on the verge of an autoimmune disorder. I was incredibly sick, yet I felt like I physically couldn't stop working. Like I was definitely like the epitome of like, if you look up burnout in the dictionary, right? Like it was who I was, but yet I was also simultaneously like I was hiding it, right? Like I was also working really, really hard to make sure that like the general public didn't know any of that, right? Didn't know that I was having this like internal struggle. I remember being on a call with a coach who was taking me through just like a breathing, like just very simple inhale, hold, and exhale. And I felt like I was going to have a panic attack like last year, right? So not like, oh, that was 10 years ago, like literally being so like jacked up, like running on cortisol. And so I think that one of the first things that has to happen is like an admission that like this this isn't this isn't working for me, and then really being willing to look at okay, what's actually going on that is contributing to these circumstances, and where am I responsible, where am I doing this? And then it's small moments, taking 5 minutes just for yourself, right? Out of the whole entire day, or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I remember it being a big deal for me that like I ate lunch, right? Like, oh, I ate lunch today. And then it was a big deal that I ate lunch and it wasn't at my desk, right? And so, like, these seemingly small things that almost kind of feel like embarrassing that like I'm celebrating because I was a coach. I had a full schedule and I had a business, and it's like, oh, I have to celebrate that I ate lunch today. But I really did have to celebrate that I ate lunch today. And so these small steps and small wins and allowing yourself the experience of like, like what is it that I want in this moment, right? What is it that I want to do? Like if I really just stop and check in, and then giving myself the experience of trying that, but also pacing yourself through the process, because going from being so attached and in operating in codependency or in that extreme of burnout, going all the way to the other side, it's not going to feel safe to your system. And so I also had to understand and learn how to begin to work with my nervous system and recognize like where my edges were and kind of lean into that precipice. But it doesn't always mean jump, right? Sometimes you have to take a minute to stand there and let your body adjust to the altitude. And sometimes that minute is a day or a week or a month or a year. And so also being patient with the process and recognizing that it's this particular, like I remember when my coach said to me, Michelle, you're not just reframing a belief, you're literally changing how you relate to yourself and how you relate to the world around you. Her acknowledging that just allowed me to be like, oh, okay. So I've been here, I've been expecting this to be this thing that, like, okay, I know it now, right? So what do I need to do and how do I need to fix it, right? So that I can be better and I can go on about my life. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like this is a big deal. And that's why it's like the uprooting and the unearthing. It's like I often have this image of like my hands like really just being like in the dirt, right? And like I'm going into the roots of how I interact with, relate to, sit with, be with myself, and then therefore everybody else around me. And I'm uprooting all of it, right? I'm saying this pattern, this isn't what I want to do anymore. And then there's the planting of the new seeds, right? And both things are it's big. I mean, it's big. And so the patience, that's everything. And I didn't have it with myself initially. And so having that space, that safe space where somebody else, whether it's a coach or a therapist, right, can hold us in that container while we dig around and do this work is everything. It's small choices to choose you, small choices of you choosing you instead of trying to adjust so that you can be chosen by somebody else.
Ooh. Wow. Yeah. That last sentence, that's everything. That feels world changing. If we could all step into that in our own way. There's a question in my heart that I want to ask you before we begin to close out the circle, which is what is it that drives you or pulls you to keep doing this work of self exploration?
The first thing that came to mind was I wish I knew.
Yeah.
It's what I said earlier, that there's this deep desire to really truly know who I am. I believe that the most intimate relationship that we have the opportunity to have is the one with ourselves. And so for me, it's that just desire to really know who I am in this lifetime, at least to the very best of my ability. And these days, for no other reason than just to know her. That's the thing that drives me. Gosh, I spent so long just being whatever version of me I thought other people wanted me to be, right? So, like, whatever you liked, I liked too. Whatever you were passionate about, oh, I was passionate about too. And so I very much want to know, like, what this being really likes and how she wants to spend her time and what does she want to do and what music does she like or not like and what does she like to wear, how does she want to do her hair. And so it's become this sort of experiment that I'm just playing with no expectation that it has to be for a purpose. And I really thought it did. It had to be for a purpose. I'm doing this so that. And I had a realization, maybe it's like a couple months ago, where I was like, if this never leads to anything, if I never, have a podcast, if I never create a course, if I never stand on a stage and speak or do a TEDx talk or whatever the hell, like if it never becomes anything, is it worth it? For me, yeah, 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 I'm worth it. Yeah, that's what drives me.
Michelle, that was so powerful. I don't think I've ever heard it that expressed in that way. And I know for me, it really has me understanding my own journey on a deeper level through a new lens that just feels so much more stable. I don't know if stable is the right word. Strong. There's a strength in that journey and an honor that I feel like I've been unconsciously trying to figure this out myself in terms of what's the point? What's the purpose? Why am I doing this? Like what, especially when the work gets hard, like I often find myself going, okay, what is this for? And to know that it's for me to get to know me is profound. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I want to bring us to a close with our final question, which of course is, what does it mean to be the change? We love asking this question because the folks that tune in, the folks that are sitting with us right here, right now, are change makers. They're parents, they're teachers, they're leaders in their own way, all trying to contribute in some way to support this world to really be what it is meant to be. I love hearing the different perspectives of, what does it mean to be a change maker? And I think you've shared so much already about what that is, and just how you be and how you have shown up today is a gorgeous demonstration of that through my lens and through your lens. What does it mean to be the change?
To be the change, to me, it's an invitation to start at home. I've thought for many years that we struggle because we tend to go too big, because what we see is so big, and then we get overwhelmed. I've gotten overwhelmed in the bigness, right, of what is needed. But if I start at home, in my body, and then in my house, and then in my intimate community, and then in my community right beyond that, for me, it's about me bringing my authentic self into those spaces. Because as I cultivate more understanding and more compassion and more grace with myself, as I change the way that I am in relationship to and with myself, then that changes my relationship and how I relate to and with the people around me. So it is about a willingness to be honest about what's real, and then make a decision about if this is something that we want to continue. And then from there, if the answer is no, what do I want to do differently? What do I want to change in me? And if the answer is yes, same question. Is there anything that I do want to do to continue this? So it comes back to home. I think we have a tendency as humans just to go outside in. And I truly believe that sustainable change has to start inside.
And you are such a beautiful example of that. So, Michelle, I'm so grateful that you spent some time with us today in Circle. I'm grateful that you've taken so much care to do your healing work, to get to know yourself on this life journey, and then give those gifts back out to the world and give your teachings to us here today. And knowing that you're doing that in a way that is not putting you at risk, there's just something very deep about that, very powerful about that. And I think that is one of the many messages that I'm taking with me today from our conversation. It's not about doing things for the sake of external change out there and putting ourselves and our well-being in jeopardy to do it. Like, that's just really not what it's about. I just love that I'm leaving here with that message. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, for bringing me in the circle. I think you're amazing, and my heart feels expanded in your presence. I truly do feel seen and feel held in the most beautiful way in your space. And I love that you're bringing all of that and who you are into the work that you do in the world. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Hi, Changemaker. Are you feeling seen? Michelle's radical honesty opened up a new door for me to see myself and my self-development journey through a new lens. What about you? I would love to hear your takeaways. The one nugget I want to pull out is her ask of us when we're feeling some tension. In these moments, the invitation is to stop and simply name, this isn't working for me. And then courageously ask yourself, what is going on that is contributing to these circumstances, and where am I responsible? Michelle also emphasizes beginning the work of getting to know your needs in increments in the small moments, which could be taking 5 or 2 minutes for yourself during the day and giving yourself the experience of asking, what is it that I want in this moment? Small steps prevents the overwhelm and allows our body to come along with you on this journey. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review and rate this podcast. It massively helps our show to be discovered and promoted, and we would love to have more and more change makers like you gather around this circle. Thank you so much for doing that. I will see you next week for our final episode of the winter season. I love you, Changemaker, just as you are. Ciao. I'm now passing the talking piece to you. If you feel called to put your voice in the circle, please head to humconsulting.ca/podcast and share your story there. I cannot wait to hear what has come up for you as you have listened to what has been shared here today. I wish you love and joy beyond your wildest imagination. Thank you so much for being here in the Circle of Change. I also want to express my gratitude to the following peeps. Circle of Change is recorded on the ʷəŋən territories, and I am so grateful to live on this land. Our opening and closing music was created by the talented E-Roll Beats. You can find his creations at erollbeats.com. And special thanks to my coach, Mary Chan of Organized Sound Productions, for bringing this podcast to life. Until next time, ciao.